20 of the Alec Murdaugh murder trial, featuring testimony from a SLED agent who further pinned down the timeline from the night of the murders of both Maggie and Paul Murdaugh.
Compelling testimony once again today. Our Greg Adeline has the details of how this drama played out in court. Greg?
Well, Billie Jean and Judy, the prosecution has rested their case. Their final witness being called earlier on today just wrapped up, and Creighton Waters, the lead prosecutor for the state, says that this will be the state's last witness, a SLED agent who gave a further description of the timeline of events on June the 7th, 2021, talking about Alec Murdaugh's specific movements on that night. This was brand new data that had just been gleaned from the 2021 Chevy Suburban that Alec Murdaugh was driving that night. Data from General Motors that they were able to turn around and put into a cohesive timeline about the events of June the 7th, 2021. So let's get to some of the big takeaways here from that testimony. Prosecutors placing the time of the murders at 8:50. And the prosecution has also established throughout this testimony, not only from the testimony of Agent Peter Rudowski today, but in other witnesses, that Alec Murdaugh was at the kennels at 8:44 on the 7th of June, 2021. That from Paul's cell phone video, and Alec Murdaugh was not napping, as he told investigators. Data also revealing that Maggie and Paul's phone locked forever at 8:49. That was said in the opening statement. It was confirmed again today through the data. Now, from 9:02 to 9:06, some very interesting data here. Data showing that Alec Murdaugh took 70 steps per minute upon waking up from a nap and then heading out to see his mom. Now, that was far and away the fastest pace of steps that he took that night. Data also showing that Murdaugh did not stop by the kennels at 9:07 when he left for Alameda, even though he called his wife twice, and the kennels was the last place that he told investigators that he knew Maggie Murdaugh to be. He then drives fast to and from his mom's house, hitting speeds of up to 80 miles per hour on the way back to Moselle. Data showing that Murdaugh was at his mother's for 20 minutes, not 45 minutes, as he had suggested to investigators, and certainly not 30 to 40 minutes that Shelley Smith said Alec coached her to say, quote, if anyone asks. Now, upon arriving back to Moselle, and this probably was the most important testimony of the day, Murdaugh headed to the kennels at 10:05. He misdialed 911 at the same moment that he arrived at the kennels and then called 911 just 20 seconds later. Here, Agent Rudowski describes how Alec Murdaugh's stated timeline closed in on him.
How many seconds is that from the time the Suburban arrives at the kennels and he calls 911?
Roughly 20 seconds.
20 seconds?
That's correct.
What, if anything, in his statements to law enforcement did the defendant say about what he did when he arrived at the scene?
The defendant stated that he went and checked on Paul and Maggie to check the bodies.
And from the moment the Suburban arrived at the kennels, how long did it take for that 911 call to be made?
Less than 20 seconds.
And so, as you can see, prosecutors trying to make the point that that was certainly a lot of activity to fit into just 20 seconds, checking pulses, trying to turn over one of the victims, and then calling 911. Well, the defense came back on cross-examination and pulled out a stopwatch, timing 20 seconds, really kind of to imply to the jury that perhaps Alec Murdaugh could have pulled that off. But still, some pretty compelling testimony from this final agent for the prosecution's case here. And again, the prosecution just moments ago wrapping up their case. We'll have much more from here in Walterboro as this trial continues, and some of the big takeaways from that agent's testimony. He also mentioned a second possible motive in this case. We'll flesh that out for you on your News at 5. But for now, we're live. Greg Adeline, WIS News 10.